Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling a really significant global story. The shifting image of China. You're here because you want to understand this complex change, efficiently. Get the key insights without getting bogged down.
Exactly.
And our goal is to give you that clearer picture, maybe with some surprising facts, those aha moments.
Yeah, we've pulled together a bunch of different sources, personal stories, big surveys, trying to really dissect how perceptions are changing. We'll try and keep it clear for you.
Okay, so let's dive right in with a pretty viral example.
Okay.
This American live streamer, IShowSpeed, his recent trip to China.
Yes, I saw some clips. Huge online following.
Massive. And his visit unexpectedly opened a window onto modern China for millions. His 2-week trip really got people talking.
And what's fascinating there, I think, is how this very personal, seemingly organic experience did something years of official campaigns have tried to achieve.
Right. A genuine shift, maybe.
Potentially. At least it sparked a different kind of conversation.
Totally. And it wasn't just, looking at old landmarks, although he did do a backflip on the Great Wall, which was something.
Chuckles lightly. I heard about that.
But he really got into contemporary China. Everything from, funny moments with a Donald Trump impersonator to being genuinely amazed by the tech.
Like what kind of tech?
Well, think drone-delivered KFC.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. And this amphibious electric SUV he drove straight into a lake in Shenzhen. His reaction was priceless. Like, oh my God, this car's not sinking. China got it. These Chinese cars got it.
Huh. You can see why that might grab attention.
And he kept saying, China's different, bro. It just seemed to resonate,
That kind of raw, unfiltered enthusiasm, it cuts through a lot of the standard narratives, doesn't it?
Exactly. And it connects to this idea of soft power that China's been focused on for a long time.
Right. Influencing opinion through, attraction, culture, achievements rather than force. They explicitly called it essential to the Chinese dream back in 2013.
Yeah, over a decade ago. But, and this is key, while those official efforts are happening...
And they are significant.
This shift isn't just top-down. We're seeing these bottom-up innovations having a real impact, too. Global trends. There was even an article, interestingly, in official Chinese media asking, basically, how did China become cool?
Huh. That question itself is telling, isn't it? It suggests they see something organic happening, too.
Right. So, okay, let's dig into that interplay. Official efforts versus these, bottom-up factors.
Yeah.
We know China's invested heavily in its image.
Oh, definitely. A decade ago, the estimates were already around, $10 billion a year?
Yeah, $10 billion.
Yeah.
And probably higher now.
Likely. And you saw concrete things like setting up hundreds of Confucius institutes around the world.
In universities.
Right.
Offering Mandarin classes, cultural programs.
Exactly. Building those cultural bridges, fostering understanding. That was the aim.
And then there's the state media push. Using platforms like X, Facebook to share positive stories, reach Western audiences directly.
Plus, inviting foreign journalists on tours, showcasing the high-speed rail, other big projects.
Yeah, and having seen footage of that rail network,
yeah.
It's hard not to be impressed by the sheer scale and the tech.
It is. It's a very deliberate strategy to shape that global narrative. But, like you said, alongside this, these bottom-up things might be having an even more sort of tangible impact now.
Okay, like what?
Well, take AI. There's a company, DeepSeek. They've developed large language models, the tech behind chatbots.
Right.
Their latest models are apparently much cheaper to run, but they perform almost as well as the big Western ones on key tests.
Wow. So catching up fast and doing it efficiently.
Exactly. That signals real advancement in a super important field. It's not just talk.
Right. And then there's the whole electric vehicle thing. Chinese EVs are popping up everywhere.
They really are, gaining market share globally. And it's not just government pushing them. It's the design, the tech, the price is getting competitive.
Yeah, people are choosing to buy them. And remember, consumer drones. China's basically dominated that market for years.
Absolutely. DJI, for instance. These are concrete products, successes that change how people see China's capabilities, on a practical level.
Which I guess leads us nicely into cultural exports.
Yeah. Now, it's fair to say Chinese music, traditional TV shows, they haven't quite hit the mainstream globally yet.
Still pretty niche outside Mandarin-speaking areas for sure.
Definitely. But Mobile gaming, that's a whole different story.
Ah, okay. Big inroads there.
Huge. The numbers are kind of staggering. In 2024, like 4 of the top 10 highest-grossing mobile games worldwide came from China.
4 out of 10. Which ones?
Well, the big one everyone knows is probably Genshin Impact.
Right, I've heard of that.
It makes over $1 billion a year globally.
Wow. That's a massive cultural footprint just from one game.
And it reaches a huge, diverse audience on their phones every day.
It really is. And it's not just the established games, is it? There's buzz about new stuff, too.
Exactly. There's this upcoming game, Black Myth Wukong.
Based on the Monkey King.
Yeah, the classic mythology. It's being talked about as potentially China's first really blockbuster video game on a global scale.
Okay. And is there international interest?
Apparently, yeah. They're saying about 30% of its 25 million pre-orders, or maybe its wish lists, are from outside China.
30%. That's significant. It shows people are curious, willing to engage with Chinese-made entertainment.
It really does. It suggests, a growing appetite for Chinese creativity beyond the more traditional stuff. And this influence, it's not just games. The platforms themselves are huge.
Absolutely. I mean, TikTok?
Right. Global phenomenon, most downloaded social app worldwide, and owned by ByteDance, a Chinese company.
That puts Chinese content, Chinese algorithms, in front of billions daily.
It's immense reach. And it's not just TikTok. Remember when there was that brief uncertainty about its future in the U.S.?
Vaguely, yeah. A potential ban.
Right. Well, during that time, another Chinese app, RedNote or Xiaohongshu, saw the sudden surge in U.S. downloads. Like 500,000 Americans joined in January alone.
Really? So people were actively looking for alternatives or just curious about Chinese platforms?
Probably a bit of both, but it shows an underlying interest, maybe, in engaging with those digital spaces.
Interesting. And then you mentioned these microdramas.
Yeah, it's a newer thing, a super short video series, like a minute or two an episode, designed for phones.
Okay.
And they're apparently getting really popular in places like Mexico, Indonesia. It's a whole new format finding a global audience.
So we've got tech, we've got games, social media, these sort of organic cultural and tech touch points.
Mm-hmm.
What about the bigger picture? The opinion polls. Is all this actually shifting how the world sees China overall?
Well, the data seems to suggest, maybe. Several polls are showing what looks like a potential turning point. China's favorability took a hit during COVID, right?
Yeah, definitely.
But since then, things might be changing. Brand Finance, they do this annual nation brand ranking. Okay.
China jumped from 8th place globally in 2021 to 2nd this year.
Second. Just behind the U.S.
Just behind the U.S. That's a really big move in just a few years.
Wow. That is substantial. Any other data points?
Yeah, the Alliance of Democracies Foundation. They've also tracked a steady rise in global opinion of China since 2022.
How do they measure it?
They have this net perception rating. For China, it went from -4% in 2022 to +14% in their latest survey, which was out in May.
From negative to +14. Okay.
And interestingly, over that same time, America's rating actually dropped. Went from +22% down to -5%.
So diverging trends there.
Yeah.
What about in the U.S. specifically? Views there tend to be more negative, right?
Generally, yes. But even there, a recent Pew poll showed a slight warming, I guess, a slight improvement in views towards China over the past year.
Okay, slight improvement.
And maybe the more significant thing for the future. Younger Americans tend to have more favorable views than older generations. The generational gap. Why do you think that is? More exposure through TikTok, games, that sort of thing.
Could be. More interaction with the culture, maybe less shaped by Cold War narratives.
Right.
It's hard to say for sure, but that generational difference, it could be a key indicator for where things are heading.
Definitely something to watch. But we should also be careful not to paint too simple a picture, right? Perceptions aren't the same everywhere.
Absolutely crucial point. Global views aren't monolithic. Particularly in Asia, China's neighbors often have more reserved, maybe skeptical views.
Yeah, you've got ongoing territorial disputes in the South China Sea, for example. Concerns about military spending.
Exactly. History, regional power dynamics,
Yeah.
Those definitely shape perceptions closer to home. So while we see positive shifts elsewhere, it's certainly not universal.
Right. It's complex. Now, China itself seems to believe that getting people to visit can change minds. The power of firsthand experience.
Yeah, there seems to be a real confidence there, that if people just come and see modern China for themselves, their views will become more positive.
So they're trying to boost tourism again.
Yeah.
After the pandemic slump.
Definitely. They've been actively working to revive it. One big move was scrapping visa requirements for short stays up to a month for citizens from, I think it's 38 countries now, mostly European.
That's a pretty big open door, cutting the red tape.
It makes travel much easier, yeah. Trying to encourage people to come back.
And is it working? Are the numbers up?
The initial figures look promising. Around 30 million foreign tourists visited in 2024. That's up almost 80% from the year before.
80% increase. That sounds good.
It is. But context is important. It's still quite a bit below the pre-COVID levels. So recovery is happening, but there's still ground to make up.
Got it. So bringing this all together as we wrap up, it's clear this is a really fascinating and pretty complex shift we're seeing. Global perceptions of China are evolving. And it's not just the official top-down campaigns anymore.
Right. You've got these individual moments like the IShowSpeed trip having unexpected ripple effects.
Yeah, and the undeniable success of cultural exports, like video games penetrating global markets.
Plus the sheer reach of their social media platforms, TikTok, others.
And then the polling data reflecting these shifts, especially, it seems, among younger people outside Asia.
And woven through all that are China's own efforts. The tech advancements we talked about, the push for tourism, they're all pieces of the puzzle.
It's this intricate mix, isn't it? Government strategy and these more organic bottom-up trends working together, or sometimes maybe even pulling in different directions.
Exactly. It's a dynamic situation, and those regional differences we mentioned are still really important to keep in mind.
Definitely. So maybe a final thought for you, our listener, to mull over. What could all these evolving perceptions actually mean for the future, for global dynamics? Are these shifts just surface level, just image management, or do they signal something deeper?
Yeah, a more fundamental change in how China is seen, how the world engages with it.
Right. What are the long-term implications for, international relations, cultural exchange, even tech competition? Lots to think about.
It certainly is. It'll be fascinating to see how this continues to play out.